Good morning and welcome to this briefing by the Jerusalem Press Club. I'm Talia Dekel, director of the club. As Jews worldwide marked a year to the day of the unprecedented assault against southern Israel yesterday, and a week to the second direct Iranian onslaught against our cities, Israelis are keeping their eyes on the north, where dozens of communities have for several weeks now joined the circle of areas suffering daily Hezbollah rocket attacks. Meanwhile, the IDF began what it calls a limited localized targeting of the enemy deeper inside Lebanon, and Israeli soldiers continue to pay the price of the war both there and in Gaza. Our guest today is Brigadier General in Reserves, Yossi Cooperwasser, Senior Fellow at the Misgav Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy, and a Senior Project Manager at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. General Cooperwasser served as Director General of the Ministry of Strategic Affairs in Israel, and finished his active IDF service as commander of the Military Intelligence Research Division. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today, General Cooperwasser.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and participating, and thank you for asking me to speak about this very interesting and important topic at this point.
Of course.
First of all, just one correction about the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Has changed its name to the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, so it's an update.
We'll do our best to keep up with the turnover of changes in names. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyhow, so let me describe in brief what's happening in Lebanon in this Israeli attempt to create conditions that would allow Israelis living along the border to come back to their homes safely after spending a year now away from home. And this operation is made actually of three parallel efforts. One that has attracted a lot of attention in the last couple of weeks is the attempt to harm the Hezbollah capability or degrade the Hezbollah capability to fight against Israel and to charge Hezbollah with a heavy price for that. You saw, of course, the elimination of key figures in the leadership of Hezbollah, starting with Nasrallah, Akil, and many others. I won't go into their names, and degrading their ability to launch rockets towards Israel by attacking their storage facilities and launching sites. And this is not only rockets that are launched ballistic missiles and so, but also the surface to ship missiles that they had in Beirut. You saw the pictures that Israel disseminated of these facilities, these storage facilities, before they were hit. And the other capabilities of Hezbollah, the logistical capabilities and other capabilities, of course, mainly command and control capabilities, and the number of operatives that Hezbollah has all over Lebanon was decimated by the Israeli attacks and by other events that are attributed to Israel, like the pager attack and things like that. So this is one effort. The second effort that is happening simultaneously is the ongoing effort to prevent Hezbollah from rearming itself. There's a big effort to prevent aircraft that carry weapons for Hezbollah from landing in the Beirut airport. And there's a big effort to prevent weapons to come in from Syria to Lebanon. In this respect, Israel has attacked the crossings along the border, mainly the Masna crossing, the major crossing in Masna, but seven other crossings were attacked as well. And all shipments that are coming to Syria from Iran in order to reach Lebanon are being attacked as well. And there's a feeling that it's becoming much more difficult for Hezbollah to rearm itself by shipments coming from Iran. There's a big effort by the Iranians to supply Hezbollah with weapons that is being foiled again and again. In this context, there was also a success in preventing crossing into Lebanon from Syria through tunnels. There was a tunnel that was destroyed as well. So it's an ongoing effort, a very big one, and we have to bear that in mind, because if we don't succeed in dealing with the shipments of arms, everything we do against degrading the capabilities of Hezbollah may be just a Sisyphecal effort. They're going to replenish themselves from Iran very easily. So this is the second effort. And the third effort, the one that we are gathered here to discuss, is the effort to eliminate the infrastructure that was built along the border by Hezbollah in order to allow ground offensive into Israel, an incursion into Israel. And this was based mainly on in and around villages in the southern Lebanon area along the border, in villages and in sites next to the villages, outside of the villages, in the bushes areas. And we have seen that what the practice that Hezbollah did with the Radwan force was to build for each sector of Radwan, the unit of Hezbollah that was charged with carrying out those incursions, building along the border tunnels, big tunnels, not crossing into Israel, but big tunnels that would allow the people of Radwan to arm themselves and find shelter before they go to war, go to carry out their operation. And everything was waiting for them there. You just would have to enter and make sure that they have all the equipment they need and go for this raid into Israel to carry out what they call the taking over of the Galilee. That was the idea. So we have now 4 divisions in Lebanon, all from Metula in the east north, and up to Rosh Hanikra or Nakura in the westernmost area of the border, operating simultaneously. It's something like 12 brigades, because each division has about 3 brigades operating under its command. And they should take care of all this infrastructure and clean the area. It's going to take time. It's a limited operation in the sense of its space. It's up to 10 kilometers out from the border, sometimes even less. And it's limited in the sense of time, because once we finish cleaning the area, we shall be able to go back to the southern side of the border. Of course, for that to happen, there's got to be some sort of an agreement about what's going to happen in the northern side of the border, because we cannot just move south and let Hezbollah come back. That makes no sense. But the idea is that once we clear this area, we shall be able to work out some sort of an agreement. The idea that was before that we shall be able to reach such an agreement without ground incursion was denied by Hezbollah. They were offered the possibility to accept such an agreement. They denied it. In Hezbollah's, in Nasrallah's last speech, days before he was eliminated, he said no to this option. And even though there are all kinds of rumors that the Lebanese government is trying to promote that, well, he might have said yes, he didn't say yes, and that led to everything else that happened since then. I think that this is the situation right now. We are fighting against Hezbollah operatives that are deployed along the border. The last number of casualties of Hezbollah is close to 500. So this is not a walk in the park. Many of those are not killed in face-to-face collisions, but with the Air Force. The Air Force is carrying a lot of the burden of this operation. We just yesterday attacked something like 1,000 targets, and 100 targets. And but every day we take care of many other targets, both in close air support and in attacks against the targets that are defined by the intelligence for the Air Force. We have to remember that many of the places inside the villages were used for military or terror purposes by Hezbollah. Some of them were houses where we knew about missiles hosted in the house, the living room, the missile room, the bathroom. These were already mostly taken care of, but there are other locations that are used for military purposes by Hezbollah inside the villages. That's why we asked the citizens of the population in southern Lebanon to evacuate the areas step by step. Every area that we entered with the divisions was asked to leave. We are talking now about something like 600,000 people that are finding are dislocated from their villages in southern Lebanon. And of course, since we attack also in the Dahia in Beirut, some people leave the Dahia as well. So many people are not are displaced now, and that's another thing that puts pressure on Hezbollah. Having said all of that, and Hezbollah is under a lot of pressure, he loses everything that he had in southern Lebanon. He's losing a lot of their assets. They're losing a lot of their assets in Beirut and in the Bekaa Valley, and other centers of Hezbollah. Nevertheless, we don't see yet Hezbollah ready to accept the Israeli conditions for ending this war. And it keeps raising this issue of solidarity with Gaza and refusal to have any diplomatic solution to the problem here that would be satisfactory from Israeli point of view. So it's we are still in a place where we have to keep fighting, and this is the stage where we're in. Just one last word about leadership in Hezbollah and remaining capabilities. It's a question mark who's running the show in Hezbollah right now, because Nasrallah left, many of his supporters are not there anymore. Hashem Safieddin, that was supposed to take over, is disconnected, probably lost his life. Nobody knows, but there is a possibility that he lost his life in the attack on the intelligence headquarters of Hezbollah. It's not clear who's making the call, making the shots, and calling the shots in Hezbollah right now. But the fact is that somebody does. Maybe it's a matter of continuing to act according to existing orders, because we saw yesterday that not only that Hezbollah still has the capability to launch rockets towards Israel, but somebody gave an order to do that. And this tells you that there is some sort of a command and control system in Hezbollah that still functions. And we shall see who comes up eventually as the new leader of Hezbollah, and how long he survives. That's another question, but since nobody's really trying to hold the job, fearing the Israeli response. But that's where we stand. Now, when it comes to capabilities, we have to realize that they don't have redundancy when it comes to the south. There is only one South Lebanon. There's only one area adjacent to the Israeli border. When they lose that, they cannot replace it. But everything else in Hezbollah was built under the logic of redundancy. That's why they held 150,000 rockets. So even if you hit 50% of this, they still have 70-something thousand rockets. It's a huge amount of rockets. And so on, every other thing on their equipment was built on the idea of redundancy. They didn't have replacement for Nasrallah either. So this is another thing that they have difficulty finding a substitute for. And so we are degrading Hezbollah's capabilities systematically, and it's very painful for the organization and for the Iranians. It's part of an ongoing new reality in which the assets of Iran are becoming less and less assets and more liabilities, and more and more difficult to maintain them for the Iranians. And this follows, of course, what happened to Hamas, or still happening to Hamas. And it's a difficult situation for the Iranians. They are under pressure. We saw that in their attack on October 1st. It's an expression of their manifestation of the pressure they are under. And they had to prove to their proxies and to Israel that they are still capable of promoting their interests and defending themselves. And everybody is now expecting the retaliation by Israel. and they're clearly under a lot of pressure. So the master plan of surrounding Israel with a ring of fire that would eventually bring about the collapse of Israel, the table were turned, and it's now their survival that's at stake, and they are very worried. And what we do to Hezbollah in this respect is a major component in this new reality in the Middle East.
So,
questions, please.
First of all, General, thank you very much for your overview. I think there's a lot to unpack there, so I think we'll go chronologically opposite. We'll anti-chronological so that we make sure to go through everything. In terms of let's start even with Iran, because that's the last thing you mentioned. We heard yesterday that even opposition leader Yair Lapid is calling for Israel to attack Iran's oil sources. Do you agree that this is the best next move, or do you have a different recommendation?
Well, I think one thing is clear. Everybody understands that there got to be some sort of an Israeli harsh retaliation to what happened on October 1st, 181 ballistic missiles that were launched at Israel. And there's a debate inside Israel, there's a debate between us and the Americans, and there's a lot of various options that Israel has. I think personally that the most important thing is to eventually take care of the nuclear facilities. That's my personal view, because the threat of Iran becoming a military nuclear country is imminent. With the amount of highly enriched uranium that the Iranians have accumulated already, they can produce something like 15 nuclear bombs within a year, and 4 of them within less than a month. So it's a situation that cannot be tolerated, not only by Israel, but also by the Americans. I heard yesterday Vice President Harris saying that the United States should not allow Iran to have the capability to produce nuclear weapons. This is a new way of putting it, because usually what the Americans are saying is that the Americans are not ready to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. But if you don't want them to have the capability to produce nuclear weapons, that's the time to operate. So in my mind, this is the most important target. That said, for that target, we need American, or it's going to be much more efficient to handle the Iranian nuclear project if we have Americans with us. Because as the Americans, Jake Sullivan explained, the others, Israel needs all kinds of munition that only the Americans have in order to cause devastating damage to the nuclear project. And because the Americans are not very fond of doing that right now as we approach the American elections, maybe it's going to be better to hit other targets. It can be military targets, it can be oil facilities. All of that is less impressive and less critical than hitting the Iranian nuclear facilities.
And what about its proxy that's been bothering Israelis in the center for quite some time? Do you have any indication what Israel plans to do vis-a-vis the Houthis in Yemen?
Well, I think we have already started dealing with the Houthis by 2 airstrikes in Hudaydah and 1 in Ras Isa. It's clear that the Yemenites want to make sure that they voice they sound the last attack, and that they carry out the last attack. We saw it yesterday with another missile coming from Yemen. I guess Israel will take care of that too, but in the old way of dividing the responsibilities, these long-range targets were supposed to be taken care of by the Americans, and they are doing a job, not enough probably, but they are doing their job in dealing with the Houthis together with the coalition that they have established. But this is not enough. We have to send the message to the Houthis that this is not going to be tolerated. At a certain point, they will have to stop operating as if they have nothing to lose. So far, they have already lost quite a lot, and if necessary, we shall charge them with more.
Okay, and moving back to the direct northern arena for us, we understand that as as early as yesterday, the chief of the Northern Command in Israel had instructed community leaders in the north to prepare to return to their homes in the next few weeks. You mentioned the issue of tunnels as one of the main things the IDF is dealing with now, and we know that the last operation in this area, I believe is in 2018, 2019, took around 5 weeks to clear out, to identify and destroy many of the tunnels there. Do you have any indication how many tunnels it is we're talking about and how long it could possibly take for such an operation to be successful that will eventually allow the residents to return to their homes? Is this a likely situation in the next few weeks?
Well, I think the figure I hear from IDF is that it's going to take several weeks to take care of all of the tunnels that are present in southern Lebanon. And once we take care of the infrastructure there and we clean the area south of the Litani and up to 10 kilometers away from the border, make it impossible for direct fire towards the communities along the border. Basically, the IDF, I think, from a military point of view, the communities along the border can afford coming back to their homes. There's not going to be a direct threat. That is based on the logic that the IDF stays in the area adjacent to the border from the north, so that otherwise Hezbollah is going to come back. That I think is the condition of the population for coming back. They said we shall be ready to come back if you stay there. If you allow Hezbollah to come back, then what is the point? And this is a political decision, not.
So what does that mean in terms of IDF presence physically in Lebanon?
Sorry?
What does it mean in terms of actual presence?
Well, I don't think we shall need 4 divisions over there as we need for cleaning the area, but after leaving taking care of the infrastructure, we shall need some sort of a garrison force that would allow preventing the return of Hezbollah to the area. Right now, what we're doing is that we forbid people from crossing from north to south, crossing the Litani from north to south, to make sure that the area is clear. And to some extent, we shall be able to continue to do that later on. But you need some military presence along the border after you clean it in order to make sure that the population that's coming back to the northern communities feel safe. They have security and they feel safe. And it's not going to be easy to restore the confidence and the trust of the population in this new situation, because now that they've seen, just imagine, now that everybody's seen how tunnel of Hezbollah looks like, what is there, imagine that we would have reached an agreement about a new situation in the along the northern border without dealing with these capabilities. And the assumption is that the military knew about these capabilities, that maybe they didn't know about each and every one of them. They knew that such capabilities exist. And, nevertheless, we were ready to work out some sort of a diplomatic arrangement that would have left the tunnels in these places. Now it's clear that this would have been a terrible mistake. So the idea of preparing the military forces for this operation, it took us 11 months to play according to the rules of Hezbollah, with the tit-for-tat situation, using this time to prepare the military ground forces to carry out the task of taking over the southern strip of Lebanon. And now that we've done it, we know how critical it was to do that, because if we wouldn't have done it, these capabilities and the infrastructure would have been left there. So it's clearly something that was essential to rebuild the trust of the population in the safety and security that the military can provide them. And they are very clear that for them to feel secure, they need to make sure that on the northern side of the border there isn't Hezbollah and there is an Israeli military. That's what's going to define their feeling. And I think this is why they were not very happy with this message coming from the commander of Northern Command, that get ready to go back. They still don't feel safe enough. And we see now that with 4 divisions, it's probably going to take several weeks before they will feel safe enough even to consider coming back to their communities.
Okay, we have quite a few questions that have come in from journalists, and I want to make sure that we have time to address them all. The first question is related to something that you just addressed in terms of the Israeli psyche and ability, to really trust in decision makers' decisions. One journalist is asking what the Israeli public's attitude towards the war with Hezbollah and Iran is, saying that a regional war would unleash an enormous undertaking for Israelis, and has the government prepared the public for such a war psychologically and practically? Is this expanded war giving Netanyahu a reprieve politically? This is, and I quote, a break from the criticism against him, if you can answer.
Well, I think we all need, I should never generalize when we speak about the Israeli public. It's, everybody has a different opinion in Israel, as you know. But in general terms, I would say that the public in Israel understands that we are in a long war. Understands that while we are fighting one war against the Palestinians in Gaza, represented by Hamas, we are fighting simultaneously a war against the Iranian axis that includes Hamas in Gaza, but also includes the other proxies. And now we are in a confrontation with the head of the snake itself. And that's clear to every Israeli. And I don't think that there's anybody, including people in the opposition, that think that we shouldn't do what we've done. As a matter of fact, leaders of the opposition like Yair Golan and Lapid speak in favor of the operation in Lebanon and speak in favor of the operation in vis-a-vis against Iran. So it's not something that is disputed, widely disputed in Israel. It's always different opinions, but it's not widely disputed. There is readiness on behalf of the Israelis who say that, okay, we are already in this war for a year, let's win this war. And let's make a new order here that would allow us to live in security for a longer period. The problem is that for profound change to take place, all kinds of things need to happen beyond just the military successes that we managed to have. The military successes are very important and they can accomplish a lot. But for that change to be lasting for a longer period, we need some changes in the way certain parts of the environment here in the Middle East think about Israel. And as long as the ethos and the narrative of many of the people around us, especially the Muslim, the Islamist fundamentalists in Iran and in Hezbollah and in Hamas and in many other places, and many other Palestinians that are even not Islamic fundamentalists, and fanatics think about Israel, as long as they believe that this is a war to eliminate Israel, it's going to be very difficult to create a new Middle East, not beyond just military successes.
Okay, another journalist is asking whether Israel has the capability of taking out Iran's nuclear facilities without US bunker busting bombs and other US support. And I'll add another part to that question is, would Israel do so without its support? Not just whether it's capable of, but would it do so without its support?
Well, I'm not a spokesperson of the government. I cannot say if it's going to do that or not. The capabilities, to a large extent, are there. Israel has been building this capability for 20 years now. And many of the capabilities are there. But obviously, the Israeli capabilities are short of the capabilities of the United States. And that's why it's much preferable to hold this attack together with the United States. Unfortunately, I don't think the Americans are going to join in at this point, maybe later. And so this is something that we have to bear in mind. We can make a lot of damage to the Iranian nuclear project, but whether it's going to be devastating enough damage, it's hard to say. Whether we're going to do it or not, as I said, it's still debated.
I understand. We're almost out of time, but I do have a couple last questions. We'll try to get them in. And what you manage to answer, you manage, and what you don't, you don't. You've been researching incitement to terror for many years. We know that the attacks on Israel did not occur in a vacuum. And we're now hearing calls to slaughter the Jews from mosques, even inside Israeli territories, not to mention, of course, pro-Hamas sermons in the West Bank. Do you expect any of these other areas to flare up too as Israel continues into the second year of this war?
Well, first of all, of course, it's the incitement and the hate indoctrination is the basis of what happened. It's not against the occupation, so to speak, because the attack of 7th of October didn't happen in a place that is considered to be occupied by those who speak usually about the occupation in the West. It happened in the Western Negev. So this is a part of 48 territories of Israel. So clearly this is there, but I think in the kind of situation we have in the Judea and Samaria territories is the one that fits the terrorist aspiration and fits the aspirations of the Palestinian Authority. They don't have to be responsible for the terror attacks carried out there, and the terror groups are free of worrying about the Palestinian Authority working against them. So it's a live and let live between the terrorists and the Palestinian Authority. We, on the other hand, understand that we have to work very hard in order to deal with the threats emanating from the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority. And we take harsher and harsher measures in this respect. We carried out several operations, Summer Dreams and others, and summer camps and others. And we are using air vehicles in order to carry out attacks against terrorists in the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority, both UAVs and even airplanes. This is a new reality that tells you how challenging the situation is in the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority, who does nothing in order to prevent it. Not only that it does nothing to prevent it, it works day in, day out in order to incite even more the Palestinians under its control. And that's something terrible. Of course, they didn't condemn the 7th of October attack. And they actually are going to pay salaries to those terrorists who are going to be in jail because of taking part in this attack. This is something that we have to bear in mind. Arab Israelis are much less involved, and that's problematic surprise from the point of view of Hamas. I think Hamas thought that the unity of the arenas is going to be shown also inside Israel. This didn't happen. But from time to time, there is an Arab Israeli that carries out terror operations like we saw in Beersheba this week. This is not a wide-scale phenomenon, and it's usually condemned by the leaders of the Arab Israelis. It's something that we have to follow.
I think we just one last question that a journalist has sent in, less to do with the time everything will take, because you addressed that already, but more to do with what the long-term thinking is, both with the issue of the IDF staying in the area in order to continue protecting the communities, and also in terms of preventing Iran from continuing to rearm its proxy in the north. How do you think Israel needs to operate in order to avoid the continued presence, having to have the continued presence of Israel in South Lebanon, and also how to stop Iran from rearming Hezbollah permanently, if that's possible?
It's possible. It's not easy. We have to understand that there's a competition of learning between the two sides. We have shown how fast we can learn, and we did a very impressive job. But we should not rest on our laurels, because I'm sure that the Iranians are thinking about all kinds of new ideas about how to deliver weapons to Hezbollah. We have to be on alert to foil all of these attempts. We can and we shall continue to do that, definitely until there is some sort of diplomatic solution to the situation in the north. And we shall have to stay along the border with military forces north of the border for the foreseeable future. It's maybe not 4 divisions deployed over there. We saw what happened in Gaza, for example. We, at a certain point, had 5 divisions in Gaza, but now we have 2 skeleton divisions, and we are even using them in order to operate a big operation now in northern Gaza. So it's a new situation once you clear the area from the infrastructure that is there. you can use much less power in order to accomplish the same goal.
Okay, thank you very much for today. Brigadier General in Reserves Yossi Kufel, Senior Fellow at the Misgav Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy. As always, thank you for your insight and your time.
Thank you.
And thank you to my colleague, Jonathan Beck, for facilitating this event. Goodbye.